thoughts on net neutrality, because I was talking to people online today about net neutrality.
Yeah.
I posted something about it that it seems to me to be one of those ideological camp issues where if you are leaning right, you think that net neutrality is a bad thing that the market should decide. If you're leaning left, you think that there's some regulation that the government should step in and be important because you want to keep people from information. You don't want a big corporation to be able to step in and say someone can or can't have their program on AT&T or Verizon or.
So I think that from what I've read, there are 6 major service providers, maybe a couple more. That already smells a little bit like a monopoly, but what I think is this: and first of all, nobody really knows yet, but I think that the bigger issue becomes if these companies provide you service in your area. They could decide to break it into, say, 2 bandwidths. They could decide you want regular service or do you want premium? If you want premium, we'll pay a little more.
Right.
Okay, that's one thing. They could break it up. If that's the case, we'll let the market decide. Maybe that creates an opening for another service provider to come in and say, we don't do that. One price covers everything.
So one of the guys on my Instagram, or my Twitter rather, had a really good point. He said the real issue that people aren't talking about is the monopolies that these companies have in small areas.
Yes.
Like if you're in a certain town, like you can only get this kind of company, or Verizon or AT&T.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that when you have a company that owns a certain town, and then in certain areas is the only way you can get coverage is you have to do it with this one company. Then it becomes a real issue.
And not only does it become an issue, but the other issue is that the real question is if you are a service provider and you provide people in this area that service, if the other service if you use platforms that the other service provides and they compete directly with this, would this service block that? Would this service have an incentive to block your access to it or whatever? And that would be an issue.
Yeah.
But my feeling is that we'll find out very quickly, and as long as consumers have the ability to go over to another provider, as long as consumers have the ability to go, I don't like the way you do business, I want
but they don't
these guys.
In a lot of areas.
That becomes the issue.
They don't have access
Time
to
will
the
tell.
other
areas
options.
have a license. They have a license in a certain district.
Consumer backlash is how you fight that. If there's enough consumer backlash and people go,
or
this
you
is
just
bullshit.
keep net neutrality in place and prevent it. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I'm going to have some experts on to talk about it soon in the future.
Yeah.
I'm going over all the data and information, but I just wanted to get people's temperature. And it's so funny how people get so aggressive and shitty with you when you just talk about this issue. Because a few people that I had to mute, I was like, good luck, dude.
Yep.
Your opinion means shit to me because you just have to be insulting when someone's just asking a question.
Right.
This whole thing is interesting because there's smart people on both sides of it, and they have compelling arguments on both sides of it. Yeah. And I don't have an opinion 100%. I lean more towards
a lot of people don't yet know how this is going to play out.
Yeah.
Because
what were you going to say though? You lean towards what?
I lean towards the idea that you have to have some oversight, that you have to have someone who's looking out, who makes sure that these companies can't fuck you over and can't prevent you from having access to certain information, certain sites. I lean towards that most. But
the answer, though, the other
question
oversight
is, though, that does the market decide that?
I was going to say,
right.
The other oversight could be, I always lean toward the idea that the marketplace would be your oversight. Let people make their choice, but they have to have a choice. And as you were talking about, there are very few service providers. My question is there incentive for other people to come into the service providing space? Can they make money? What are the barriers to entry
to
as far as that's
compete with the big
concerned?
dogs?
Right.
No.
And secondly, is it in these service providers' interest ultimately to make extra cash for such bad press? You may see nothing happen as a result, but I like the idea that the marketplace, that consumers have a choice. And when consumers have a choice, they're going to go with what works the best for them.
Agree, B.
I do too, but I do believe that it's entirely possible that large corporations could have
monopoly,
real influence over the way our culture has access to information. I think that should be stopped, but I also think that these fucking government organizations almost all suck. They're all filled with unmotivated people who suck at their job, and the bureaucracy and the fucking red tape gets deeper and thicker. I think almost every government organization that does any task is flawed. So the idea that we should have government take care of these issues, I have a problem with that too. I see both sides of it.